Merrill Memo with Matthew Dickerson from Dubbo Regional Council.
Councillors have determined the Macquarie Conservatorium will lease 139 Darling Street for a period of 5 years with an option for an additional 5-year term. Can you tell me a bit about that?
Certainly this has been discussed at length in the community and amongst councillors between the Conservatorium and Council for some length of time now, and it's great to see a decision's finally been made. The Conservatorium of Music have to vacate the building they're in. They've probably got until the end of the year if they had to have then, or that long, but only really definitely till the end of June. So it was important for them to find a new home fairly soon. Councillors were very much in favour of supporting the Macquarie Conservatorium. It is an organisation that has got a great reputation in Dubbo and the region. And so the support from a council perspective is the building there at 139 Darling Street that you mentioned. It's normally referred to as the old Carpet Court building because there was the Carpet Court business in there before council bought it. We'll be leasing that to them at a peppercorn rate, so essentially $1 a year. So you might as well say free rent there. That building could be rented out for somewhere in the vicinity of $70,000 a year. So in essence, this is seen as a financial contribution from council to the Conservatorium of Music of approximately $70,000 a year. And probably there's one thing during the debate that occurred at the latest council meeting. There were a few times that it was mentioned that possibly this is a case of cost shifting where the state government has been giving the Conservatorium a building for peppercorn rent in the past. They're no longer doing that, so then the cost gets borne by council, an example of shifting costs from state government to local government. And we see that in a whole range of areas, and that's probably the case in this scenario as well. Having said that, councillors thought the Conservatorium of Music was too important for Dubbo, for the region, to potentially lose it, and by giving them a peppercorn rate on a building they can utilise, then that ensures that the long-term viability of the Conservatorium of Music is assured.
Now, Matt, you did vote against the move, didn't you?
There was a vote of council, and it becomes somewhat irrelevant after the vote of council, but having said that, it's public record. The vote for this particular outcome for the Conservatorium was 8-2 in favour of that. There were 2 councillors who voted against it, including myself. But it's a bit like when you're playing a game of cricket. The umpire puts their finger up and the decision's done. So once that decision is made, if you get technical about it, Section 226 of the Local Government Act describes the duties of the Mayor, and Part C says that the Mayor is the spokesperson for the governing body of council. So yes, I had some issues with the cost. I didn't love the idea of the cost being borne by council. The majority of councillors were in favour of that. That's the decision. I move on with that. I can accept that decision, and certainly I can see that it is good for the community to make sure that we've got that conservatorium going into the future. So I often say that that vote is irrelevant. It's the council resolution that matters. It's the outcome of the vote that matters, not what each individual councillor voted for, because again, it's a democracy. We have to accept the decision of the democracy.
$70,000 is pretty generous, isn't it?
$70,000 is a significant sum. Keep in mind that the state government does give them $450,000 approximately each year, so they get a large amount of money from the state government. They generate a similar amount of money from fees that they charge to students, and then in terms of that discussion, the $70,000 does seem significant, but what made councillors feel more comfortable with it is that that particular Carpet Court building, which may potentially be worth $70,000 a year in rent, doesn't have a tenant in it at the moment. So we're not receiving any money for that building at the moment. So the reality is that it's not any amount off our bottom line in terms of contributing $70,000 to the conservatorium. The loss is really potential future loss. In other words, if the conservatorium wasn't going in there for free, we could potentially lease that building out for something like $70,000. So it's a different way of looking at it, but ultimately we did have to say that this is a financial contribution, and we think the conservatorium is important enough that that is a reasonable sum for us to contribute.
Is there anything else we should know about this, Matt?
I'm actually really looking forward to the conservatorium moving into that building. They've said they're going to spend approximately $700,000 of their money fitting it out, so it should be a fantastic building when they're finished with it, and that'll make that whole area, which is near the Dubbo Regional Theatre and Convention Centre, that whole area will have its standard lifted by the conservatorium moving in. So I'm looking forward to the conservatorium being there and students being educated for their musical journey in an area that's probably going to be a much better area than they're currently being educated in.
Well, thanks for speaking with me today.
My pleasure, Nathan. Thank you for your time.
Mayoral Memo with Matthew Dickerson from Dubbo Regional Council.